Hello and welcome to another episode of Damon's Tabletop Terrain. On today's episode, I'm going to go through some of the methods and techniques I use to build a Scarif table for Star Wars Legion. So I was trying to recreate a sort of palm tree, sandy, tropical paradise from the Star Wars movie Rogue One. And so there are a few more challenges to this table than I was used to, especially dealing with clear resin and water effects. So it was quite a new challenge for me, but I think it turned out pretty good. So I started off for this table with some panels, wooden base panels um, that I picked up from Home Depot, just standard square panels. I think they were 2 foot square, I think. And then I could attach, you can buy the foam insulation panels of the same size and just simply glue them on. And then you can start to either break that down with nail varnish remover, or you can just cut into it with a knife. And so I was making channels that I wanted to have that would link up to form streams. So over here I had one panel leading into the second one here, and then I would seal the entire panel with a thin coat of Durham's water putty. So this will set it very hard like concrete and protect the panels. I mean, you can drop these things on the floor and they shouldn't crack. They're very, very tough. Then you take it out into the garden if it's warm enough to spray on some primer, but put a sheet or some cardboard down before you do it. Otherwise, your wife will kill you. And so once it's primed, you can sort of check that it matches up nicely and just trim off any edges that have paste so that it is flush before you start doing any further painting. And then I did a light spray of a darker primer just on the where the water effects were going to be. And then I did a quick brush with some cheap acrylics, so a darker blue on the deeper areas, a lighter blue near the edges. And then I also wanted to sort of do some very subtle shades of where the sand would be wet. So, you know, when you get that on a beach, it's often darker, slightly darker, and sort of dries out and gets paler as you go further up the beach. And so here we have another layer of paints just before I started pouring the resin. And this is after the resin's been poured. So I think it was crystal clear, which is one of the cheaper 2-component clear resins that people usually buy that for making beads and jewelry and that kind of thing. So it's 2 clear bottles of solutions, and you mix A and B together, and then within an hour or so it sets pretty hard. So I was pouring thin layers of this onto where I wanted the water effects, and you can throw in little bits of sand or pebbles and small stones, and that will set within that resin, so you have things that you can see through the clear resin. And I had an uneven surface underneath because I wanted to give it that kind of coral effect. And so here you can see that the coral effect is quite nice with I did some highlighting here before I filled with the resin. Now you can, of course, add pigment to these resins if you want to make them darker or bluer or greener. You can do that, and so you can get that kind of effect as well. And then I had some sand and other bits of grit that I added here just to give it a bit more um, uh, detail, really. And then here's another couple of shots. So you can see where it looks like it's deeper here, but very shallow here, so the troops could run through this like they did in the movie. I didn't add much in the way of ripples. You can add this kind of thing after the fact. Um, with various sort of gloss mediums that will set fairly hard if you want ripples and that kind of thing. But because it's so shallow, you wouldn't really expect much in the way of wave action or ripples. Um, so I didn't really do too much of that kind of thing. And so this is some of the terrain that was I purchased and painted. This was a card kit. I can't remember where I bought that from. Um, and but it looks pretty good. Some 3D printed parts here that I added, as well as the trees, which I'll talk about in a second. And not all terrain has to be um, built. This is an old box used for photography. I think camera film would go in here for some reason. It had some kind of counter on it. But you can get something like this that isn't being used anymore around the house or maybe where you even work, and add some little 3D printed greeblies and bits and bobs to it, and paint it up, and you've got some terrain. I also found some plastic plants. This is kind of like a bamboo-y kind of thing. You can buy this in bags from on eBay. I think this came from China, so you can get all kinds of plasticky plant material. You can make some light terrain with, and just attach it onto um, small panels of either cardstock or plastic card, something firm that you've put some water putty on there, just to sort of make a nice hard and heavy base. But a lot of these look very artificial. I mean, they are very plasticky. Sometimes they're very glossy. The color isn't quite right. So I, especially with the palm trees, I would paint those and just dull them down. I had to search quite a while on eBay to find some decent looking palm trees, and again, you kind of buy these in bags, and I think they came from China about 3 or 4 weeks later. And again, I would have to repaint these. I'd prime them and paint them up. And usually, when you look at palm trees, the understory is kind of brownish and sort of dying because it doesn't get much sun. So that makes it look little bit more realistic. And I'd add a little bit of um, tufts of sort of plant shavings that I would get. You can buy this kind of stuff in moss from any kind of hobby shop in America. It'd be Michael's. And I think I added some beads so it looked like fruit, or the coconuts, I should say. And then they're based onto the thing, and some herbs and some other uh, moss just added. So you've got that kind of. Sometimes you've got detritus from plant material from palm trees falling down at the base of the trees. And another angle here. And I think these were just mixed herbs and some other things I was sprinkling on there. And so I made a whole bunch of panels, so I could put these around anywhere I wanted onto the terrain. And so I wanted to add in some acknowledgements here, because a lot of information and really great tips I found on some other channels. So the Terrain Studio has been great, in particular for Star Wars Legion themed models and terrain. Sean on that side has made some beautiful Kashyyyk Wookiee kind of terrains, and also some Geonosis terrains. And so he does some beautiful painting and some builds, and I think he's getting more into some game reports now. So that's a really good YouTube channel I'd recommend. The Terrain Tutor, I think he's based in the UK, is Mel. Very enthusiastic builder, and he's one of the more famous YouTube terrain builders. Some great tips. Did a really nice jungle Burma build. So if you're interested in making jungle type themed tables. That site is just fantastic. A wealth of information there from Mel. And then another really good channel is Geek Gaming Scenics. Look at that channel. He's been doing this for quite a while now as well. Some great terrain builds. I got a lot of good tips from his site on how to mix and pour and prep that resin for water effects. And he also has some great tips for saving money and coming up with good recipes for making washes for your terrain. So again, really three great, enthusiastic, really positive builders there that are really, really great for sort of just general tips for your building. So with that, I'll wrap up this episode, but thank you so much again. Thank you for watching. And once again, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be doing another couple of table builds very shortly, and then a whole lot of other painting tutorials. So there's a lot more coming. Thank you.